Welcome everybody. This is the second video in a series of videos for students of Breda University, Aalto and also the wider world. My name is Joseph Roevens and today I'm very happy to introduce Frans Melissen, a colleague from Breda University and professor of sustainable business models.
Okay, let's stop here. Sustainable experience design.
Sustainable experience design. Okay, then I should check again on the
Yep.
website and get the correct
don't
information.
never trust the website.
Okay. Frans, what I admire a lot about your work, and I've known you for several years now, are two things. One is that you have this continuous drive and passion for the environment, for sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is that you can very clearly formulate what some of the issues are today. And one of those things is, for example, the model you developed with Lars Moratis on the tree intelligences.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll take the opportunity of going through all of that today. And I'd like to start with what was the thing in your own life that made you say, it's time to start saving the planet?
Well, actually, the first time that I actively got involved with sustainability and started to look into it was actually by accident. Because after my studies in Eindhoven, at the Eindhoven University of Technology, I wanted to do a PhD. And a PhD project became available, and that one was on sustainability.
Okay.
So that's the first time that I actually looked into that topic. I was 27, 28, something like that at that time. And once I got involved with that project, which was actually about the collection system for consumer electronics in the Netherlands, and the fact that we do not have a well-functioning collection system for that, so most of those products actually end up outside of the collection system and into the environment, with all the negative consequences with that, such as heavy metals leaking into the environment and the health hazards that come with that. Ever since I looked into that, I've actually never looked back and spent the rest of my career up to now dedicated to sustainability. It's that simple.
Okay, fantastic. Yes, I remember what touched me was in 1986, I was a student at Cornell, and for some interesting reason, the village where the university is located is one of the few socialist/hippie towns of America.
The best ones.
Exactly, and then I remember going into the town and seeing a Whole Foods before it became a chain. All sorts of vegetarian restaurants, something I had never tried before. Massage, there was also the New Age going on. But what I especially admired was that so many people there were living another lifestyle, which was a fun lifestyle, because there was a lot of fun going on there.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they were doing good things for the planet. Whereas where I came from, family-wise and even city-wise, was like more a place where people love to display the size of their cars, and the environment was no issue, you know. So great, and you've said that you have continued since then, you know, saving the planet, being busy with that. Often what people ask when you're busy with the environment, people say things like, well, what do you do yourself? Or they say even worse, they say, oh, but you still drive a car. Or, oh, you still drink Coca-Cola, or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Could you tell something about how you, in your own life, live sustainably?
Sure. I do drive a car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do. It's for me one of the only ways to get to my work within a reasonable time. But I try to minimize using my car as much as possible. Mm-hmm. I eat less and less meat as time goes by. And actually, the more I do not eat meat, the more I actually resent eating meat the times that I do.
Okay.
It's something that I'm that I'm going through, and I think a lot of people are going through, and it's something that we all will have to go through at some point of time, actually. I have actually decided, after consulting with my girlfriend, that we will never ever again fly an airplane to go on holiday.
Okay,
we will not do that again.
Okay.
And I'm also trying to minimize the times that I have to step into an airplane for work. So for Breda University of Applied Sciences, for things like conferences and projects and things like that, to the absolute bare minimum. And if there's any chance of getting out of it, I'm getting out of it. I'm also actively trying to persuade our colleagues to fly less and less. As difficult as that may be for a university that's got aspirations to be international, with students that do placements all over the world, I still think that we should try and fly as little as possible, and I'm actively trying to persuade people for that. And I'm currently saving money to get solar panels on my roof, switch to a heat pump, things like that. So yes, I still harm the environment quite a bit. I already do it a lot less than I used to, and I'm absolutely convinced that I will do a lot less, even more, in a few years from now.
Okay.
But then maybe the most important part is missing there, which is I constantly talk to people about sustainability.
Right.
And if you look at what is my biggest contribution to trying to save the world, I would say that I'm not letting any opportunity pass by to bring up the topic, to try and persuade people that it's important, to talk about how you could look at it, things like that. And I would like to think that that's my biggest contribution.
Okay, okay, that's great. I'd like to go back into time. I think it was in the early 90s I had a chance to work with Arne Næss, an ecological philosopher from Norway who passed away a few years ago. And one thing that inspired me about him was that he was saying we have something called the Gaia gift. Like, we can use the planet, we are, part of the planet, we can use it, but we use it wisely. And we are allowed to sin. And in his case, I remember him telling me, because he lived almost a Spartan life in a small hut in a cold part of Norway, and he was getting his own water from the ice. But he made that choice. But he also said once a year, he's a climber, I need to go to Nepal, and yes, I'll take the plane and I'll do that. And this concept of Gaia gift has stayed with me, because also in my own life, in the way we live, things that we do is we have solar panels now for 3 years, and looks nice and it works very well.
Definitely.
We have the bio garden that we like to take care of. Buying products like Ecover. I used to work for them, but I still believe this is a great product. And also on a social level, going to restaurants or initiatives where there are people working there with what some people call disabilities or other functions, and supporting that. So being part as a consumer of those things. In terms of sinning, and I've actually, and then we'll go into Boaz in a moment, in terms of sinning, it's the car. And I was making the calculation, when I drive to this school, if I take the old road, the Bredabaan, which goes maximum 80, it takes me 39 kilometers. But I said, okay, I'll try the scheme. So I went 14 kilometers to the train station in Brecht, then had to spend 10 minutes for a parking spot that was available, then going on the train, which was delayed. Then I went on the train, delayed, but I arrived. Then I had to check out with cards and all stuff. And then I got my bicycle, that was fine. It was raining, so I said, I'll bring back the bicycle, I take the bus. And in the end, I thought, wait a minute. One, I enjoy my car, because in my car, I decide when I go and when I leave. I like singing in my car. And actually, because also the road from Braschaat to Brecht is now being under construction, it took me 20 kilometers to get to Brecht. So in the end, I was saying, wait a minute, now it took me 2 hours instead of 45 minutes. I'm not really polluting that much, especially because, again, thinking about Gaia Gift, I bought an e-bike 3 years ago. And thanks to the e-bike, all my travels to Antwerp City, almost all, I should say, not like in winter when it's really freezing, but else I take my e-bike from home to Antwerp City, it takes me 55 minutes, but I pollute zilcho by doing that. So the reason I'm saying that is that people who want to live sustainably and green are thinking about ways where you are greening your lifestyle, and at the same time you're also saying, I am still allowed to enjoy life.
Of course.
Because in the green movement, that's something we can also talk about. I remember in the green movement.
Before you continue,
sure,
actually, maybe it's nice to relate to what you just said by telling you that only 2 weeks ago, my colleague Bert Smit and I actually went to Gaia Zoo.
Okay.
In relation to your Gaia experience, to tape a movie on a book that we recently published on sustainable customer experience design.
Okay.
Which is actually all about this, about that sustainability does not need to be going back to basics in the sense that you can't live a nice life. That's complete nonsense.
Yeah.
And we used the Gaia Zoo on purpose to also show that even though hundreds of thousands of people come there by car to enjoy a day out, it's actually from a sustainability perspective still a really, really good thing. Because in the first place, what better environment to learn how to appreciate nature and the natural environment and the value of animals and things like that than a zoo where you have fun with your family and enjoy a day out and see nice things. And it's also a fantastic way to do that without having all those people having to take the plane and go to Africa and see them in the wild, which would really ruin our world.
Exactly.
So in that light, the Gaia Zoo, your story about Gaia, I think nicely connects.
Okay. Okay, that's great. And it's nice that in the green movement, you have those extremes. You have still today, and they will probably always be there, the more fundamentalists, almost into the insane, I would presume, that say, well, no meat, no car, even saying, oh, animals in zoos, that's a very bad thing because they should roam around. And then you say, well, you can just not have lions. And so you have that, and then you have on the other extreme people who, well, do very little or maybe even don't concern at all about this issue. Now, I would like to briefly take us to Breda University and maybe mentioning some incentives that happen here. You know, one is this travel policy. Yeah. Yeah. Shall you start or shall I start about that?
Well, it's very simple actually. I mean, we've recently had a new travel policy installed at Breda University, which is actually the ideas behind that travel policy are good. We're trying to stimulate people to take the bike instead of the car, to take public transport instead of the car, and we're using money as a stimulus by making it more attractive to use bike and public transport in comparison to the car with respect to the reimbursement that you get, which makes a lot of sense. There's nothing wrong with that. There are some little things in that policy that I really don't like. And the one that I really don't like, for instance, is that as employees we all have a business card for using the public transport, which we can use for business purposes and for private purposes, which is good. It's fantastic that I can use that in the weekend as well, for instance, to go to Gaia Zoo. Great. But if I use it during the week for business purposes, so for instance to go to a business meeting somewhere else in the Netherlands, if I forget to click the tick box on the website that comes with this account linked to this business card, The university is going to automatically assume that it was a private travel.
Of course, because during the week that you work here, you travel privately.
I always go on private travels during work days. Yeah,
Exactly.
no,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And this is where I think they've made, well, not a small mistake, actually a big mistake. If you want to turn, trying to stimulate people to become more aware of their impact with respect to travel in a smart way, the very last thing you should do is accompany that stimulus with distrust.
Yeah.
Because you're basically saying, we think you will try to misuse this policy. And because of that, we are going to assume that you do, and only if you inform us correctly through the website by ticking the appropriate tick boxes at the appropriate time, we're gonna assume that you haven't misused the system. That's the wrong way to do that.
Yeah.
It should be the other way around.
Yeah.
It should absolutely be the other way around, where you say, we're going to assume that all of you are good people that want to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
So we're going to trust you that you are going to use this policy, this system, in the right way.
Yes.
And only if you indicate that it is a private travel, we are going to take that as a private travel, not the other way around.
Absolutely.
That's a clear example.
That's a clear example, and I remember vaguely, I think it's 25 years ago, but there was a discussion in the Belgian Senate at that time about using recycled paper or not, and how it should, and people were making lists and all that. And then a wise person from the Green Party said, wait a minute, instead of having all sorts of lists, let's just have a flat fee and say, in those days it was still Belgian francs, 10,000 Belgian francs per department, and the assignment was be green.
Yeah, of course.
So if you buy toilet paper or cleaner, whatever, just you figure it out.
Yeah, of course.
And we assume that you will do the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here, and again, I was also thinking, is it partly because of the law? Is this travel app so sophisticated because is there a Dutch law that says, oh, there is none? Okay.
No,
So that we
definitely
can
not, because I
eliminate?
know of universities that do it exactly the other way around.
Okay, because here, I remember before summer, I overheard one of the managers saying, yeah, we're again in a meeting to discuss the bicycle thingy. And I was counting, wait a minute, if all these managers are going to spend hours talking about this, then a person is going to create apps. Then HR people or mobility people, because I've already been in contact with them, are answering emails and saying, doing this. It's an awful lot of time, therefore an awful lot of money.
Yep.
And something like, I don't know the exact amount, but saying, guys, here's 500 euros for everybody. Here it is. You just live green for a year.
No, that's how it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
I
we
agree.
create a blog or a vlog where you share. You say, hey, we did this and that.
The
and we get
interesting thing
inspired.
is, Joseph, is that the results will be a lot better actually.
Yeah.
And you can see this in the business world exactly the same way. If you're gonna try and persuade businesses to become more green, more sustainable, by doing that through regulations and laws and minimum requirements and things like that, it will be slow.
Yeah.
Only the things that you have thought of will happen.
Yeah.
Whereas if you do it the other way around and you start stimulating companies by making it possible for them to come up with their own ideas, their own improvements, their own solutions, then it will be much faster. They will come up with ideas that you didn't think of, which are better, more inspiring, will get more people on board, and so on. And that's a far smarter way to approach sustainability and trying to stimulate it than the, let's say, the incremental approach that is dominating thinking about sustainability right now. That's really the wrong way.
Absolutely, the incremental approach, and that includes that somehow someone needs to check and control if you're doing the right thing.
Which basically just slows it down instead of speeds it up.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And again, you know, our university assumes, as it says in its marketing, that we're like top people and everything.
Yeah.
Well, then we probably must be good at organizing all those things also.
Yeah.
Now, I remember, I think it was at this academy, they've done some nudging. So they had a sort of cigarette butt device, and you could have votes on things, so people would automatically start putting the butts in the right place, and the whole idea of nudging. I talk about nudging because in your model on the three intelligences, you talk about the naive, native, and narrative intelligence.
Yeah.
Could you explain a little bit more how that thinking developed and what it entails?
Sure. Sustainability intelligence, which is the overriding word indicating those three types of intelligence, is something that I basically came up with together with my colleague Las Morates in preparing for my inaugural speech now, I think 3.5 years ago.
Right.
And it was a way to try and capture all the different approaches that are already out there with respect to trying to stimulate sustainable development and stimulate people to become more sustainable, but also a way to incorporate why things are not happening and why things are happening too slow. And from that analysis, you basically can all boil it down to three key aspects that seem to determine right now why sustainability is not moving fast enough. Okay. And the first one is, and that's the one that's linked to naive intelligence, is that that's the incremental problem. The fact that we're waiting for policymakers, governments to come up with policies and regulations, that we're waiting basically for other people to come up with solutions, instead of trying to think differently. And it all boils down to what we've already known for quite some time now. I mean, there's a reason that almost everybody at some point in their career quotes Einstein and saying that the same type of thinking will not, etc., etc. And the same applies to sustainability. Yeah. Sustainability is the result of what we have done. Unsustainability is the result of what we have done so far. Exactly. The way we have made decisions, the way we have created policies, the way we do business, the way we behave ourselves as consumers, and so on. Those are the causes of unsustainability. And it would be kind of silly to expect those same things to create the solutions. Right. So if we really want to move forward with respect to sustainability, we have to start doing things differently, and not incrementally differently, but radically differently. Mm-hmm. But as soon as you start proposing that, there will be some sort of resistance from what you could call our current socio-economic system. Mm-hmm. Because that's not the way we're supposed to do things. Mm-hmm. A company, for instance, that goes for making the world a better place instead of making profits, well, that's just weird. That's not how we do things. That's also not how policymakers have organized things with respect to the business world. So a company like that will not get the same advantages as a company that makes huge profits. We've had a whole discussion in the Netherlands in the last year or so about dividend tax and things like that, which is basically all about how can we stimulate companies to make even more profits. That's the way policymakers look at improving our world. That's not going to create sustainability. Mm-hmm. So naive intelligence basically means stepping away from how we've done things so far and try to come up with sustainable alternatives. So alternatives that might seem silly, or at least in the beginning a little bit weird to other people, but we have to do something because what we're currently doing is clearly not working. So you have to be consciously naive. That's the essence of naive intelligence, and accept the fact that at least for now, probably the majority of people will consider you a bit of a fool. Mm-hmm. They'll be proud to be a fool. Mm-hmm. That's the message of naive intelligence. Be proud to be a fool, be proud to be considered naive, because that's exactly what is needed to change from incremental improvement to radical improvement. Right. So that's the first element. Then again, if you want to do that, obviously you want to get other people on board. You cannot change the world by yourself. And that's for you and me as an individual, but that's the same for a company, even if it's a big company. You cannot change the world by yourself, so you have to find allies. Right. And the only way you're going to do that if you truly understand people and what makes them tick. And And that's the link to native intelligence.
Native, right.
Understanding what makes people tick and using that to join your initiative to make the world a better place. Easiest way to explain that basically is that from the Stone Age days, we are programmed to like fat food, greasy food, because there's a lot of energy
Nutrients,
in there.
energy,
Exactly.
yeah.
We like sweet food because ripe fruits have lots of sugar in there, and that's good for energy. Once again, those are the type of foods that in the old days we needed to survive. These days we can just go to the supermarket. We don't need these tendencies to survive.
We can eat tofu.
Exactly. But they're still ingrained in our brain.
Yeah.
This is the reason that they came up with salad dressing. What better way to make people enjoy salad is by putting greasy, sweet stuff on it. They're still eating a bowl of salad. You're just using that tendency to love that stuff that's on top of it to make them do it.
Right.
The same principle with sustainability. Use those tendencies to make people enjoy sustainability. That's the example that I just gave about the Gaia Zoo. There's nothing wrong with thinking about sustainability during a day that is actually a pleasant day, a good day, a day that you're enjoying.
Right.
Actually, it's the best time to think about sustainability and to bring up that topic. And that principle, that application of native intelligence is what needs to accompany naive intelligence, to get people on board.
And I give an example also of native intelligence. I was just reading that Albert Gore is a part of a fund that is doing well on the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about green business, sustainability. And when you read about his clients, it's the big investors. Mm-hmm. It's also the big fortunes that he has now convinced, like, guys, you want to make money? Well, you can also make money and make the world a better place.
Exactly.
Hoppakee, put your money in this fund. And actually right now, the word on the street, literally on Wall Street, is, well, buying green shares makes as much of a return as the non-green, so why not also do green and feel good that you're adding there, right?
Absolutely.
So there you come into...
So there's a nice quote on that. I think it's from Dawson, which says, even selfish genes can make people be nice, charismatic, nice to other people, caring, and so on.
Right.
Use those genes in a good way, in a smart way.
Right.
That's the whole point here.
Right. Right. And then you're saying that you have those, and there is place with a naive intelligence, where you could say, if I think a little bit about Tony Hsieh of Zappos, they're him deciding to pay all his people above minimum wage, to give food and everything for free, and to create some sort of family. No, he says happiness of my employees is really key. Yeah. And he somehow wrote a book about it, and he's trying also, because it's part of Amazon, so he has to tell Bezos, listen, we're also making money, but it's a bit of guesswork. But he kind of feels, no, making people happy is important. Absolutely,
and this actually automatically links to the third element, the third component of sustainability intelligence, which is the narrative intelligence.
Right.
And Zappos is a good example of that, and there are many more examples. If you want to do things differently and you want people to join, then you need to be able to explain exactly why are you doing this, what is the ultimate goal that you're trying to achieve, what will the road towards that goal look like. Will it be a nice road? Will people enjoy it? Why would they want to be a part of that? Things like that. So the third element, narrative intelligence, is all about not just story telling, but sense giving, sense making, joining forces, creating shared goals, things like that. So those are the three elements that need to come together, basically.
Right. I'm making a bit of a jump now also. I read something a few months ago about the guaranteed basic income, and one of the young Dutch historians, I forgot his name now, but he looking for a new utopia that we need to. So that would be a narrative, an image that we say, hey, that's the kind of society that we move towards. How, if I understand you correctly, is naive intelligence basically okay, the old system doesn't work, the old way of thinking, and we're just
But a bit more than it
thinking
doesn't
about-
work. It's the cause of our problems. Not
Yeah,
just it
no, no,
doesn't
no, no,
work,
no,
it's
no.
the cause of our
it's the
problems.
cause of our problems,
Yeah, exactly.
and we randomly think about new things.
Yeah.
And the moment that gets shape, you then go into narrative intelligence where you create a narrative, or is that?
Randomly is a bit much, I would say. I mean, a part of that definitely. I would like to think that we can do better than just randomly
Right.
try things. Actually, we can learn a lot from a lot of things that are already happening. So it doesn't have to be random.
Right.
I mean, we see more and more people coming up with great initiatives that apparently work. So why not learn from that and try to scale them up? So it doesn't have to be random. Actually, the interesting thing is, from a technological perspective, I can't think of any problem that we could not solve.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't have to be random. We just have to figure out how can we change the way we use technology in such a way that we start using the right ones and stop using the wrong ones. That's not random.
No,
That's
exactly.
with a very clear direction.
Absolutely.
So consciously naive doesn't mean trial and error.
Okay, clear.
It means consciously doing it differently than what the current system tells you you are supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
Those are two very different things.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. It reminds me a bit, David Bohm wrote a book on creativity. And he said one of the things that Einstein did well was that Einstein was extremely well versed in Newtonian physics, so he really understood that system. And at the same time, there was like a creative little bulb of his mind saying, maybe there's something else. Maybe it could happen somewhere else.
Sure.
And suddenly the click happened that he could see that and the other thing. And Bohm explained that as creativity, as understanding the system, but at some point you understand so well its limitations also, and you say we need to jump out of this.
Yeah.
And then humans, we have the capacity of jumping out of that.
Of course we do.
Great.
Of course we do. It's not that easy though. Because obviously one of the reasons that we find it so difficult to step out of our current system, to let go of our current system, is that those that benefit the most from the current system are also the one that control the current system.
Right.
Because our current system is based on power, and power is based on money.
Yeah.
So it is very difficult to create a big bang change of that system. And that also explains why probably the smartest approach for trying to change that is not by talking about this for years and years and years at government level. That's way too slow. No, it boils down to people like you, me, and all the people that we know just going for it. And then we get back to what we discussed earlier. People just need to dare to do things differently,
right,
and organize themselves. So it will probably, that's my suspicion right now, be more like a bottom-up movement, a grassroots movement, than something that will be arranged by those in power in the current system, because those are actually the ones with the vested interest in the current system. So it is a bit difficult to expect them to come up with a solution.
Right. Yeah, what's amazing is if I'm a big fan of libraries, and also the library as a business model, where you now see, okay, with books, CDs, magazines, but you can even borrow seeds for your garden, and who knows what else we could do.
Sure.
And if more and more people start putting that initiative, you get a special change.
Absolutely. And but this is actually I'm glad you bring that up, because this is a nice example. So we don't have to do trial and error. We've already got some very nice. A library is a nice principle to use as the basis for new developments. We see a lot happening in what we've come to label as the sharing economy, for instance, and that principle, that model, is a nice model to explore further. But you have to do that very carefully. Otherwise, you'll end up with some problems that you might not have expected. There's actually, I think, I saw a nice article about that yesterday or the day before, discussing the negative impacts of the sharing economy. And the most well-known example, of course, is Airbnb. The principle of Airbnb, where you open your house to other people to stay there and basically share that resource, the house, is a fantastic idea. It's brilliant. It would save having to create separate buildings for people to stay in when they visit a place.
Exactly.
Which is saving resources, which is better for the planet. It also creates interaction between people living in a place and those visiting, which is great. That's what we want. We want people to interact. Unfortunately, and this is what I was trying to say earlier, this is where the resistance of the old system comes in. Because what you've seen is that some people in the old system, those with power, those with money, have seen how successful this business model can be. And they've basically taken it over and turned it into an old system principle now, where it is all about buying as many properties as you can and making as much money as you can by those properties. It's no longer what it was originally meant to be. Yeah. And that's why you have to be really careful and be consciously naive in resisting to think of new initiatives in the same logic as that of the old system. Otherwise, you'll end up with the same solutions, and that's not what we want.
Exactly.
So in scaling up, we have to really be conscious of the fact that we need to resist those temptations of the old system.
Yeah.
And this also brings us back a little bit to where we started with, yes, you can enjoy sustainability. Yes, it can be pleasant. You could even make money with it. Those are all good things. But as soon as that second part of it takes over, so it becomes the main motive, having fun, making money, and sustainability has just become a means to do that, then sustainability has become instrumental. Exactly. It has become a business case. Yeah. And then we're back where we started, thinking in business cases and making money and self-interest and things like that. Yeah. We're back at the cause of the problem, not the solution. So you have to be really, really careful in how you deal with those things.
Yeah, that's very important. I have to say the last year and a half, I've sort of dug my nose into the stock market. A long time ago, I got my economics degree. But I did that because I'm also in Triodos Bank. I have an account there, and I've decided to put some money in funds. And I'm reading more about the stock market. And I'm doing that, I see that warning. I see on the one hand, there are these green opportunities. And for example, in Triodos, I'm in Triodos Pioneer Funds. You get a list of all the companies. And like one of them is the one that the solar panels I have is like from Solar Edge and Veolia, whatever. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm also reading up on carefully finding out what are those companies then doing. Exactly. The people who selected them in the funds, do they still do it for the good reasons? Exactly.
And that's key. That's key. Yeah, absolutely. That's key. As soon as you base your decisions solely on do they make the most money, then we're lost. Yeah. Then we're back to where we started. Because then even so-called green companies or green funds will see that and they will make that into their critical success factor. Exactly. Instead of being sustainable. Exactly. And that's not what we want.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I remember a meeting that was back in '91. We were gathered at the European Union. We were small soap manufacturers. Ecover in those days was the biggest of the small ones. But we had like somebody from Sweden, one-person company making alternative soaps and everything. And we were negotiating a true eco label. Because in those days, back 91, 92, there was phosphate-free. But that was it. But the rest was the biggest chemical rubbish you could imagine. But it was phosphate-free. And during those meetings, there were two gentlemen, I'm not going to call their names, but they were basically saying, hey, but we should just keep that label for ourselves so that we can make more money. And we were saying, no, but the rest of us is here. The rest of us who were often former engineers or former chemists from the old P&G and whatever, no, we want the alternative so that the rest takes it over.
Yep.
And then you get that different point of view. And it's keeping that, that sincerity. Be watchful for that, sincerity.
Absolutely, that's the key, yeah, definitely.
And saying that, I also would like to go with you just to make that clear to students and to the larger world. True cost accounting. The fact that I think a lot of consumers forget that many of us pay for pollution.
Yep.
Like if I take Antwerp, they're talking about the problem with the ones living in the city, that they get all these pollutants in the air and for the children, but nobody is taking care of that. The government doesn't even say no, cars are not allowed to do that. So it's just part of the business model.
Yeah.
And as long as it's part of the business model, it takes guts together with cash flow to say, I've got to compete with something extra because I'm willing not to pollute. I'm willing not to do that.
Yeah.
Could you?
No, definitely. One thing that could really speed up sustainability and sustainable development of society if we start using what you've called true cost accounting or whatever. There's numerous versions of it, but basically that the actual cost of what you do and what you produce and what you sell should be in the price of that.
Right.
So if creating a specific product actually means that you have to cut complete forests for that, then replacing those forests should be part of the cost and should be in the price. And then suddenly it's not so attractive to buy those products anymore. So that could really help. But once again, we have to be really careful not to go overboard with that. Because before you know it, we are going to base all our decisions on that true cost accounting.
Yeah.
And then we get to some very interesting dilemmas. Let's say the rainforest in Brazil, or the life of one person in Africa. What should be priced the highest?
Yeah.
2 lives of people in Africa versus the rainforest. 3, 4, 100. And even if we manage to solve that ethical dilemma by putting a price on it, then before you know it, we're all going to go for the cheapest alternative because we've made ourselves believe that now that we use true cost accounting, it's in the price, so it's okay.
It's solved.
Which means that that other alternative is not going to be used anymore. It's now suddenly the product that takes away the rainforest in Brazil is cheaper than the product that kills people in Africa. So suddenly it's now okay to cut the rainforest based on that principle because it's the lowest price. Right. And this is where we have to be ultra careful because this is where we get back to what we discussed earlier. If we start applying the old logic of lowest price is better than highest price, of it all needs to be translated into economy as the single way of steering our decisions, we run into the same problems again. So we have to be really careful there. True cost accounting can be a really useful tool, but it's not the solution to all problems if we forget why we did it in the first place. And why we did it in the first place is to account for the fact that we're doing things that we shouldn't be doing, like polluting, like cutting trees, like harming people, by creating poor working conditions, things like that. Why would we have to put a price on that? Can we not just stop doing that? Would that not be the more radical, naive, consciously naive solution, instead of trying to catch that into our old system through accounting? Right. So you got to be really careful there. It's something we recently published in an opinion piece in a paper, and we got some very interesting responses there, especially from and I won't name his name, but let's just say it's somebody high up in the traditional system, an economist from a university, and also a member of a board that advises our government, saying, that's all nice and dandy what you have written, but you clearly do not understand economy because in the end, economy will solve that problem. no, that's the cause of the problem, not the solution. So we have to be really, really careful.
Absolutely. Wow.
Remember that narrative thing? It's
Yes,
about that.
yes.
It needs, the story needs to be about sustainability, not money.
Yes, yes.
The change needs to be about sustainability, not money.
Right.
What
Right.
motivates people, you could use money for it. But if it's only about money, then we're back to the old situation.
Absolutely.
We cannot do that.
Yeah, yeah. So Frans, let's go back to Breda University. And could you tell us some of the projects that you're involved in? And let's first focus on those with students and then those with colleagues without students.
Well, I would say there's two very distinct types of projects with students or for students that I'm involved with. First type is a nice example would be the so-called SKITOS project. Or SKITOS is a weird acronym for Smart City Hospitality.
Smart City Hospitality.
Yeah,
okay.
so they're all in there. We just needed a name, which is a project focusing on over-tourism, one of the well-known problems of today's world, with cities like Amsterdam and Venice and Barcelona being swamped by tourists, local residents not particularly appreciating that, and even though it brings a lot of money to the city as a whole, it's actually turning the city into a place where it's not nice to live anymore. So what we're doing in that project is we're working together with a university in Norway, a university in Austria, a company in Spain, and 7 cities. And we try to look into what would be smart ways to tackle that over-tourism problem. The way students can be involved in that project is through research assistantships. A nice example of that is that by now a former student of ours, Samantha Boom, did her research assistantship last year, and she conducted a so-called research into the perspectives of the different stakeholders in all of those cities, and used. Can we stop for a moment? I forgot the name of the methodology. Come on.
Qualitative and
No.
thematic
No. It's the
participant observation.
Q-sort.
Okay.
Q-sort. Oh my God, that's weird. I was thinking in my.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah.
So where shall we continue?
Samantha Boom.
Samantha Boom.
Yeah. Samantha did her research assistantship last year. She's now a former student doing her master's in Scotland, actually, on the same topic, over tourism. And she conducted what we call a Q-sort research, which is basically a research in which you look into the perspectives of all the stakeholders in cities, the way they look at tourism, the way they look at sustainability, and try to sort that through a specific method to distinguish the main world views that are there with respect to this issue. She wrote her bachelor thesis on the basis of that research, and she graduated with a 10.
Okay.
And she actually was awarded the TUI South Sustainable Tourism Thesis Award just a few weeks ago at a big conference in Nijmegen dedicated to over-tourism.
Okay.
So actually getting involved as a student in projects like that gives you a world of opportunities and an opportunity to shine with respect to your studies.
Okay, excellent.
So that's one way students can be involved in projects, and the way I involve students in the way I do research. A very different way is that I actually try to write textbooks for students on all the topics that I address in my research.
Okay.
I've recently published a book together with my colleague Bert Smit on sustainable customer experience design, which tries to explain how you could design experiences, which are becoming more and more important in today's what we call experience economy, in such a way that they stimulate sustainability. That's the key topic that we try to address in that book.
And that book is in English or in Dutch?
The book is in English.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's published by Routledge, and they also publish another book by me and another colleague, Lieke Sauer, which is specifically dedicated at the hospitality industry. It's called Improving Sustainability in the Hospitality Industry, and which takes this a little step further and looks at now if we take those basics of trying to promote sustainability, what is needed for that, how could we apply that in the hospitality industry, and how could you actually turn the hospitality industry into a catalyst for sustainable development instead of what it is currently regarded by most people as an industry that actually harms the environment, harms the world. But it could be the other way around if you use some of the principles of sustainable experience design in a smart way.
Okay.
So those are the two different ways in which I focus on students in the research that I do.
Excellent. And those two books are just recently out? Or
yeah, they are both out this year. The one on the hospitality industry is actually it's now November 2018. It should be out today, tomorrow, somewhere soon. And the one with Bert Smit was published just before the summer holiday. So it's now widely available.
And that book, do you already have responses from other universities in this country or outside that want to start working with it? Are you planning on going on tour with the book?
Well, we've actually, as I mentioned earlier, we've recently taped a promotional video for sustainable customer experience design. It was very nice. Actually, one of the very first responses to when I tweeted about that book was from Tasmania. And a teacher there at university who said, I'm going to use this book. I do a course on sustainability and events, and I can use this to have my students design more sustainable events.
Fantastic.
So that is fantastic, yeah, absolutely.
So in New Zealand or in Tasmania?
Tasmania, that's Australia.
Australia,
Okay. So that's nice.
Good. And what kind of support do you experience from Breda University for this?
A lot.
Okay.
Very simple, a lot. I may be critical at the university for their travel policies. And at the same time, they are the best employer that I could wish for when it comes to giving me the freedom to try and do whatever I want to do to promote sustainability. So they give me time and freedom to write books like this. They give me the time and freedom to do the projects that I do. And of course I try to do them in a way that also benefit the university, and I think that they do. But no, they fully support this. And you can also see that Breda University is slowly but surely making sustainability more important.
Exactly.
And that's a good thing. Some things can still be improved, but the overall tendency is definitely a good one.
Great. And just a final one, you write columns also in newspapers?
Opinion articles, yeah.
Opinion articles?
Yeah.
How can people in general, the wider public, follow what you are doing, what you're writing?
Well, they get very simple. If they look on my Twitter account or on LinkedIn, I will make sure that I include a link to all of that there as well, so they can easily follow that. I would advise them to also follow Lars Moratis.
So Twitter, LinkedIn, and following Lars Moratis?
Yeah, that will definitely help. We make sure that you can really not miss it.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for this.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.